wherever you are in the segment where something can be automated, you will lose your job.
What type of jobs you think most at risk of being automated?
Programmers who just simply kind of code to the basics can be replaced by automation. But a developer or an engineer who understands client requirements, is able to anticipate environmental changes, is able to do software design, right, and then do thorough testing along with that, is someone who could use AI and augment AI to make their work more efficient in terms of code generation, because ultimately they have to review the work. People are aware of things like ChatGPT, etc. I think you can use these frontier models. They also collectively known as frontier models, because ChatGPT is not the only model, though it might be popular amongst the common folks.
Hello friends, welcome back to Curiosulus Chronicles podcast. This is Rohit, your host. Today, AI is really improving. It's evolving. And there's a lot of talk on social media, on LinkedIn, that is AI really coming for our jobs? I'm hearing a lot of CEOs saying AI will replace some jobs. So I was quite curious about it. So I invited an experienced CTO, who's still coding as well, by the way, to talk about, is AI really coming for our jobs? What is happening in the world of AI? Our guest name is Arjun. He's based in Delhi. So before we speak to Arjun, I would like you to please subscribe the channel and please like and comment and let me know what are your thoughts. So without further ado, let's speak to Arjun and talk about, is AI really coming for our jobs? Hello Arjun, welcome to Curiosulus Chronicles podcast. How are you?
I'm good, Rohit. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks for joining this Curiosulus Chronicles as well. I know we did a podcast in Hindi on Meet the Mavericks, but this one is gonna be special because this is Curiosulus Chronicles. This is about leadership as well, for leaders. So I'm really looking forward to our podcast today.
Oh, great. Me too. And thanks for having me here again.
Thank you. So Arjun, a little bit for our audience, could you give us a short intro for yourself? What are you doing? I know you told me just now off camera that you just had an exam. So please share something about you.
Yeah, I think I'll just go back chronologically. Very recently, I just finished my course from IIT Bangalore on quantum computing and machine learning. In fact, that just finished yesterday.
Nice.
As I was speaking. But prior to that, I've been basically practicing AI and software for the past 23 years. To be, which contains a mix of, I'll be a software engineer. Then I graduated into data engineering and practicing AI for the past 6-7 years. And I've worked in various capacities, right from engineering level to consultant to CTO. And also training and mentoring people. So I have a fairly, and that too from small organizations to large organizations. So I have a fairly good understanding the length and breadth of the industry, as well as the various applications. And I'm basically, I would consider myself an AI specialist. I think I've earned that. I've also done a master's in data science from University of Arizona about a few years back. So plenty of industrial experience and educational experience, I would say, to kind of claim that I can be called an expert, but I don't know.
No, you are an expert, Arjun. So thanks for taking your time out to talk about a really great topic today, right? Is AI taking our jobs? So this is where I'm going to start our conversation today. Is it really taking our job? Is just changing how we work, basically?
In the short term, to see, definitely jobs are being changed, right? I think the more interesting question is, how is this different from previous revolutions? If we look at humanity, right? We had the Industrial Revolution, right? Then at least from my lifespan's perspective, we had the digital revolution. When the phone came out, that was before me. But then the digital revolution happened, where computers came in the 1980s. Well, they were there before that, but they started kind of entering our lives in 80s, 90s. I started working on a Atari 800 XL, which was a home computer when I was 9 years old, so that's way back. And most people today won't even understand those computers.
They were, no.
So yeah, but coming back to your question, then there was the internet revolution, right? So the key question is that, and with every revolution, there are job losses, right, and new jobs that come in, right? I think the more interesting question is, how is this AI revolution different from all the previous revolutions, right? And with every revolution, there is efficiencies that are built in and redundancies that go out, and skills that are aligned with those redundancies are typically the ones that go out, and the ones that are aligned with the incoming thing are amplified. That way, this is similar. So, will jobs go out in the short term? Yes. But then also you need to understand is that those jobs will not be recreated. So those positions will be filled. So people who have understanding, and here's a very important concept that I would like to talk about. And this concept can be utilized in different conversations, right? So there's AI automation, there's augmentation, and there's ideation.
Okay.
Right. So automation is where the AI or the robotic processes. When I say robotic, I don't mean just physical robots, but when I say robotic, I mean process automation, basically,
Right.
or what we also call RP. Okay, they can replace jobs. So wherever you are in the segment where something can be automated, you will lose your job. Right. Wherever you're in the segment where you can augment, that means basically you take the help of machine learning, but still AI and machine learning cannot be the expert. You have to be the expert, right? You have to know what's going on, and we'll talk about examples later on, right? But it's important to understand this pyramid, right?
Okay.
And automation is at the bit below, right? Then is augmentation, right? And then is ideation. Ideation is the creative aspect, strategizing, etc. Right? So definitely you don't want ideation to be taken away. Let's talk about ideation is also say governance. Even if AI was capable of governance, would you want AI to be deciding your policies? Right? I don't think so. Right? You would want certain. So there are certain areas where capability is not the issue, but risk and what do you call it? Trust is the issue. Right. So definitely, we need to understand AI cannot just be consumed with the lens of capability. It's one thing to say AI can take your job, and another thing to say will AI take your job. So jobs where a company or an organization cannot risk a machine making the decisions cannot be taken, right? Even if they're capable. Jobs where machines are not to be trusted or are not fully capable cannot be taken, which is the augmentation layer. But automation, where the risk is low and the automation is possible, the capability exists, will be taken, right? So now let's come to a deeper question from that. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No. So I was thinking, when you mentioned about the 3 layers at the moment. So if we start from the lower layer, right? Automation, right? So what type of jobs you think most at risk of being automated? I know you talked about, you said we talk about examples. This is what I'm looking for, saying, okay, this kind of job can be automated and it's lower risk, you said,
So I think definitely repetitive jobs, right? Let's just take an example of resume screening, right? With the LLMs that we have, people are aware of things like ChatGPT, etc. I think you can use these frontier models. They also collectively known as frontier models, because ChatGPT is not the only model, though it might be popular amongst the common folks. But the frontier models are capable of screening, resumes, right? And through agentic AI, you can build frameworks and workflows and pipelines where this job can be automated, right? Any kind of customer care, a lot of customer care BPO work can be automated, right? So any clerical work, right, that is a sort of front collar job, a white collar job, sorry, right, but requires is basically low in terms of the repercussions of decision making, and is fairly standardized. In fact, AI can do a better job than humans, because there is a concept called normalization. Normalization basically means that if I have an organization and there are 10 people, will 10 people give me the exact same result? In humans, there's always going to be a bias. One person will have a different perspective. I give 2 resumes to 2 people, right? You can have 2 different perspectives, but AI will maintain the same perspective across all the artifacts. So it's normalized. So it's even better because you're getting consistent results, right? And you tweak what you expect, and the AI will give you consistent results, which is not possible with human. In fact, the reason why we put humans through training is to normalize. Right? Why do BPO employees go through training? Because they are told that in this situation, you are expected to respond in such a fashion. In this situation,
yeah.
So that's normalization. Now you get that free from any automated process. So these are. I'm sorry, I'm going probably a little deeper than I should, and just correct me if I'm
great. No, it's great because it's the curiosity. That's why we call this podcast Curiosulus Chronicles. So we want to, go deep and then talk about these things. So please go ahead. Yeah.
Right, because below the hype, I think if you understand the fundamentals, then you're able to kind of just not look at it as a yes or no and as a fuzzy thing, but you can kind of answer. Now, based on the industry, right, you can decide where the automations will happen and augmentations happen. But as I've given you example, resume screening, BPO jobs, clerical works, right? To some extent, low and creative writing, right? These can all be automated, right? Numerical analysis of basic accounting practices. So where you have a head accountant and he had maybe in a accounting office, and an accountant's office, you always have the head accountant who's the person you're dealing with, but then they have people who work for them who are doing fact checks, who are doing account simulation, who are doing tabulations and all. That work could be automated. So all clerical work, basically. If you summarize it, the word is, any clerical work. Of course, the deeper thing was automation, but in terms of what the job functions we understand are clerical jobs. So they are immediately at the risk of being replaced, right? Low-end developers, I find that also I would call clerical, right? Though they are engineers, but they are not the kind of engineers who are adding value, right? Now, the engineers who add value, I would say, are okay. I'm sorry for people could misquote me because value is a very subjective thing. So I take my words back, right? Maybe I shouldn't say value because again, value can be different to different
very
people.
subjective. Yeah.
Very subjective. So I apologize for saying value. But what I'm saying is at least lower down in order, right? It is something that is repetitive. So, young software developers or, I would say programmers, not even software developers, because there is a slight nuance difference between developers and programmers. But programmers who just simply kind of code to the basics can be replaced by automation. But a developer or an engineer who understands client requirements, is able to anticipate environmental changes, is able to do software design, right, and then do thorough testing along with that, is someone who could use AI and augment AI to make their work more efficient in terms of code generation, because ultimately they have to review the work. Now with AI, there's also another challenge. With when it like so I talked about clerical jobs, which is fairly, I think, intuitive. Most people can imagine that.
Yeah.
But I took development and programming as a specific example because here is a use case where the lines are a bit blurred.
Yeah,
right?
quite fuzzy. Yeah.
Quite fuzzy, right? And I want to address the hard questions here. I don't want to give the obvious answers. I mean, you also want to give the obvious answers because you don't want to miss them out in your podcast. But let's take the example, and I'll be happy to take any example you want. I'm just rolling with one I'm giving because I'm from the software industry, so
Yes.
I think I can talk about it. But
let's take that one. Because I'm from software engineering. I've coached teams who are software developers and testers, and then let's take as a normal software developer, right? Who doesn't know testing, right? He or she only does the coding part. They said, yeah, my role is just as a coder, not as a tester. I know we talk about being T-shaped or pie-shaped, that you need to know as a developer, you need to do development, testing, and end to end, but most of the jobs I've seen, most of the people I work in previous, like in my career, they're always saying, my role is just being a developer. There is another test analyst in the team who's doing the test. And so let's take that as an example.
All right. And you bring up before I get to that point deeper, you bring up a very important point about multi-role versus single role, right?
Yeah.
And definitely where there are multiple roles required, AI will find it harder. Though with agentic AI, I can still create a developer agent and a testing agent. And in concept, I can say, hey, I can put them together to create a workflow where even if I have a multi-role, but in real life, multi-role disciplines come with certain nuances which are outside the context of automation, right? There are certain subtle nuances, like QA, the tester role, also has to keep in mind certain client requirements or certain other nuances, right?
Yeah.
So multi-role is easier said than done with agentic AI, right? So I will not get into that conversation, but you're right. I think we can agree that multi-role is harder. I'm not saying it's impossible for AI to replace. It is much harder, right? So a developer or an engineer who is multifaceted, or any professional, right? That who has multiple facets and has domain experience is harder to replace than if you're single faceted. Number one, right? That's one, which is what you brought up actually, right? So I want to address that. Right? Then, addition to the multifaceted thing, let's get into the details also. See, I'll ask you a simple question. And in fact, I was having this conversation with someone who was doing software development and has an idea where apparently, they would kind of create agents and think that they can, just write the entire software using agents. And I've developed production grade software, and I still think I'm a little skeptical, right? Because I'll tell you something. When agents write the code, right, it means you don't know what code is written. Fair, right? This is slightly of a security risk, okay? And if there's a problem, um, sure, the AI agent can go in and rectify the problem also, but sometimes it may require a human to go in.
Yeah.
And now here is the problem. If AI is writing the code and the human has not seen the code, remember machines develop complexities. If a human was to write it, the human would write it in a manner which is easy for the human to understand. If the machine writes it, right, for sure, again, you can put guidelines into code readability, etc. But there's a high chance that the machine is churning out lakhs and lakhs of lines of code that nobody has seen. Isn't that the point of automation? So what I'm going to like prove to you that there's a contradiction in this theory where lots of lines of code is being generated by a machine, but no one is there to review it, right? Another machine can review it, but where is your comfort factor, right? Now, when there's a problem, can you trust? Remember, this is what I talked about, the trust factor. Can you, from a security point of view, you're working with an organization where you had an agent and you want to deploy a software in an enterprise scenario, in a production environment that has never been reviewed, is black box tested, it's not white box tested because you really don't have an idea of the code, right?
Yeah.
So where is your, this is subjective, right? Where is your trust level in code like this? It can be done, right? And this is an open question. I'm not giving you an answer, right? But my own trust factor is that for people who want to create software like this, the question is who goes in and reviews it. And when you go in and review it, what is the expected level of complexity and guaranteed? With an existing code that I've written, I know what to expect and I know I can fix it. And there is a more predictability once there's a problem. So all let's take an analogy of TVs today or cars today. I'll tell you honestly, like I have, though I'm not a car expert or a mechanical engineer, but we used to have in India something called the Maruti 800, and the engine was very simple, right? And I could open the bonnet, okay, and I knew what was there. You could see the air filter, you could see, everything. You could see where the oil is going, you could see the coolant, right? And you could see the fan belt, you could see everything, okay? In today's cars, if you open the hood, you just see a black case, okay? And on the side, maybe the wiper fluid, etc., whatever you need the interface to interact with it. And it's not possible for you, even today, when you go to a mechanic, he uses something called the ODB connector to do a diagnosis of what the problems in your car are. Okay, so something like that is possible, right? That we will not have to manually go through the code. Okay, so I'm now counter arguing. I'm building a narrative here, right? So I created a problem, and I'm saying, okay, let's look at where car industry is with automation, and let's see what happens to the software industry on that same paradigm, right? And sure, we'll have method, but software is different. Why is software different? In a car, the same engine, the same setup, right, is used for all the cars.
All the cars,
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Again, normalization.
Yeah, normalization. Yeah.
Right, normalization is applicable for software products also, but even software products, the good unique quality about software is it's customizable, and based on the environment, your outcomes can change. If you're in a production environment, sometimes what we know as integration environmental testing is for this, because if the environment changes, right, the conditions change. If the data changes, and see, remember, software is not just software, right? If my data changes, my expected output can change. Right, so the risks are very high, right? And I don't have an answer. Obviously, we can build the tooling, etc., and this is going to be evolution process. But you will need engineers. Again, I'm now I've gone really deep into this to explain. It cannot replace jobs. You need people, but the level of skill increases. And now the right expert with the right tools can go and do the job.
Yeah. So this is what I'm saying, the opportunity for developers, for the people, employees to learn, be multifaceted, they go into more multi-learning mode rather than just saying as a silo, say, I only want to focus on my bit and that's it, right? So there is an opportunity, what I'm saying, what you just said, Arjun. What do you think of that?
Definitely. Multifaceted with understanding AI tools to be able to deal with AI problems, because AI problems are going to be unique, which cannot be fixed by humans like they were manually. So to fix AI problems or the problems because of AI, you will need to use AI, right, as a tool to fix those problems, but you need a human to fix it. That's augmentation. And yes, multifaceted, again, sticking to your question, is important. So both these aspects are important. Is training yourself to use those AI tools and understanding how those AI tools will revolutionize or change your job role, right? And being multifaceted are both key ingredients to surviving and excelling in this environment.
Yeah, and then we always talk about being adaptive, right? The game is about adaptiveness. There is nothing, even without AI, we said, as a team, we say, yeah, guys, you need to be adaptive, you need to change. Anytime it can happen, right? So are we actually overhyping the threat of AI at the moment?
See, based on the fundamental analysis I've just drawn, I don't think there's any hype here. It's real. The this if there's paranoia, there's a difference between hype and paranoia. So I don't think there's a hype. I think the threats are real to people, right? And but it can be adopted. But definitely there should be no paranoia, because if you really understand the nuts and bolts, you can come out on top in the situation. And in future, there will be more jobs created that will require these experts. Think about it. The more code that is written by AI, you need more people who can go into that code and fix it, right? But with those specific AI skills. So over time, in the interim, there'll be more job losses. Certain job roles will become redundant. But over time, you will need more people to fit these roles, right? And that's not a bad thing. So I'm not, paranoia is a bad word. Hype is real. Hype is real. Paranoia is bad.
Okay. So for paranoia, yeah. So for a fresh graduate, I'm thinking as a fresh graduate, you mentioned regarding this automation, right? The entry level jobs will go away mostly, right? Because AI will do the job. So as a fresh graduate, I'm coming out. What should I do then? I'm really scared if I'm a graduate. So my roles are not there. AI is taking over my roles.
I think, probably we're giving, I think there are multiple answers to this question. I think the first answer to this question is, I think, let's not think our young graduates are that naive. I think they are very aware. AI is being taught in schools also. So they are probably more equipped than people who are in the industry who have not used AI, and they are aware, and they have an advantage because they will be entering into an industry where the redundant job roles are out and they'll be aware of them. So I don't really worry that much for the new people coming in. Okay. Like I said, there are roles and opportunities for people who can use AI, right? At various levels, whether you're a prompt engineer or a data scientist. And that's a different concept also. But like in data science also, you need to understand the maths behind it, etc. And those skills are going to be relevant. So anyway, so I don't. I'm not worried about. I think I'd be more worried about the middle. People who are people who have say 5 to 10 years of experience, who have got used to and have been stuck in a particular role, and they have not evolved. They are the ones at risk. The fresher will adapt, right? And freshers are not fussy. I mean, at least from our time. I don't know what Gen Z and whatever Gen is running right now, but even if they are fussy, they will adapt, right? They have that luxury to adapt. The person who has been stuck for 5 to 10 years in a job role has a harder time because they have no option but to reinvent. And for a lot of these people, it's very difficult to, adapt. So, I hope I answered your question.
No, it makes sense to me. So if you guys, this is very thought-provoking answer you gave actually. The people who are stuck in their roles for 5-10 years, they need to adopt, they need to evolve their skill level to survive in today's world. So are we talking about, you mentioned about white-collar jobs, right? And will AI impact the blue-collar jobs as well?
Yes. I haven't mentioned blue collar much enough right now because there was more depth and for the audience to consider for white collar jobs. But definitely for blue collar jobs, I would say that there is a risk. But blue collars are at a risk when robotics takes over, right? So I think robotics is another field that is very closely related to AI, but is also progressing. Like for instance, the day the human hand is automatable, then people will have just algorithms to use that hand to do various things, right? And you can practically remove most skilled handwork and replace it with machines, right? So we are looking at a lot of like today textiles is based on machinery, but that machinery is very it's different kind of machinery. But I'm talking about handicraft, right? Let's just say 5 years from now. In fact, I think to the best of my knowledge, there are already projects which are trying to mimic the human hand in terms of its dexterity, etc.
Oh, wow.
And all it requires is the intelligence, right? So all it requires is the intelligence to take a hand and make it do the things a human does. And then what is the difference between a human hand and this thing? And once you can replicate the human hand, you can do almost every job that humans do even better because that hand could be coordinated by a different machine, right? Hands are not the best job, but hands are required for certain jobs. for certain different jobs, you can have different tools, and there's better integration across different robotic processes. And blue collar jobs are then definitely at a risk. So that's inevitable, I would say, actually. But it's just that the things that are stopping it, I think, are currently obviously the progress where it is right now, capability. But even if the capability comes out, then there's safety as a measure, because there's a difference between. I'm not saying that white collar jobs also security and safety is important, but in physical processes, there's a physical danger which, to our human minds, is more dangerous, right? My computer can do damage to me, but it cannot physically hurt me.
Yeah.
Though the mental damage it can do is quite a lot. I'm not understating the damage, but it's limited physically. But if safety protocols on robotics are not in place, the physical damage that they can do to people around is a lot, or property or people, right? And I think safety is a very important consideration. So there's standards that have to be crossed. I think the barriers for that to be successful are higher, and that's why you'll see more time. But it is inevitable, and once it does come out, blue collar jobs are going to go. So I would say blue collar jobs, in terms of clerical white collar jobs, still have some runway. It'll take more time, like for the reasons I've explained or more. And I'm not an expert in this area, it's just based on my awareness. I want to be very clear in saying this, right? Because I'm not a robotic, I have a keen interest in robotics, but I'm not a robotic expert, right? But from what I understand, it is inevitable, but it'll take more time because of some of the reasons I mentioned or more.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. It makes sense. So that's what I was thinking, will AI completely replace the human creativity in decision making? It's really hard to say that at the moment, or you think it's coming up soon?
Well, already we are using diffusion models for videos and audio, and all sorts of creative music.
Yeah.
But again, this is in the realm of augmentation, because when it comes to creativity, there is a lot of subjective thinking that goes into creativity, right? And subjectiveness is based on the perspective of the human. Ultimately, who's the observer? It's a human, right? And the subjectivity of the machine has to appeal to a human. So there's still, I think at the end of it, it requires a human to determine whether this creativity is of value or not. So again, I think this is an example where, in fact, there are already cases where I think I'm forgetting, I should have remembered it for a podcast. So I could have given a reference link. Maybe if I find it later, I'll share it with you.
Please, yeah.
Where there was an art competition, and humans, and there was an entry by a machine or a person who did art using AI, and the competition was won by the AI, right? But obviously, on one hand, you can say it is AI doing the creativity, but it required a human being to tweak that AI to get it. So that's why I don't credit AI completely, and I don't consider this as a replacement, but I consider this as a case of augmentation. Right. So I think creativity it will require a human to decide. Even today, when you go to Meta or you go to Google, or what are the tools that they have that are using diffusion models, and you want to create these videos which are made by AI, requires the human. And by the way, I did a workshop on creating AI videos also as a hobby, which is out of my formalism. I did. So I did that, and what I found was that it does require a lot of work on the human. Like you have to, through prompt engineering, you have to set up the scene, for instance, right? You have to specify what you want in the scene, what you don't want in the scene. Now you can use another prompt to generate the prompt, but somewhere there's a lot of work on the human side. It definitely makes the process very efficient because it cuts out the shooting angle. But the thought process, the scripting angle, etc., to create these videos is required.
I was thinking about the software side of any example of augmentation. I know we talked about prompt engineering, but any other areas you can think we can add here?
I think all of software. I think augmentation. Okay, honestly, getting my head back into the question. I think augmentation will see more cases than automation. Because automation has very stringent requirements, reliability, trust, etc. They have to be met. In augmentation, you're just looking at making it efficient, and even if the machine is not up to it, you have a human to make up for where the machine is not capable. And so I see personally, and this is why I think is exciting, and that's why I said don't be paranoid, because the opportunities are huge. Because even with AI, I don't think AI can solve this thing. I'll tell you something honestly, like for a quantum course also, we were doing so maths, for instance, right? AI is, in fact, that's a very good example. When we say AI today, what is in the top of our heads? ChatGPT, LLM, frontier models, right? So AI is also a very vast topic, right? AI has been there for 1950s, right? Okay, of 1943, I think, the McLaurin-Pitt model, the first neural network, the basics of 1940. I'm getting it off by a few years probably, okay? But after it was developed as a math, right, and it developed. But why has AI surfaced in the past 5 to 10 years? It's not that the theory, of course, the toolkits and the libraries have significantly seen a jump. But what has really helped the AI revolution take off, which we need to understand, is firstly the availability of data. So before the AI revolution came, there was the big data revolution, right? For those who are in the software industry, not for people outside the software industry, right? Where data became the new oil, and there was so much emphasis on big data, Hadoop, and NoSQL databases, data mines, data lakes, all those kind of data warehouses, right? And the existence of large amounts of structured and non-structured data, right, is what was the fuel for training the AI models, right? So it required data, number one, and massive amounts of data, to see the kind of AI we're seeing today, by the way, not for any AI, right? You can have classical unsupervised machine learning with very less data also, by the way. But I'm talking about the AI that when we're talking about AI, there's a certain concept or imagination that people have what they mean by AI right now, right? And we're talking about this frontier LLM models primarily, right? So that data was number one key factor, and number two key factor was the processing, the GPUs, right? The ability to train machines with lots of computational power. Without these two things, AI would not have been able to take place, right? So that because of that, the AI has come, right? And they are, coming back to your original question about augmentation cases. I think I see more cases for augmentation than there are for automation, to be honest. That is the exciting that is the exciting reality. And coming to the software specific case also, augmentation, see, where all can augmentation not be used would be the question. Wherever you make AI to make anything efficient, you can augmentation, but you cannot use automation actually. So it's the contrary. The opposite is true if you think about
opposite true. Yeah. I mean, it does make sense. So if we go to ideation now, right? Can we go to ideation? Yeah.
Sure.
So if you go to ideation, what examples you can give on that?
The CEO of the company strategizing the company's vision, or the CEO of any, or the departmental head of any division strategizing, and the factors that go into the policies that go into. Remember, strategy is not just based on data and facts. It is a lot of subjective considerations, politics, human angles, geopolitical changes, things that are very difficult for even machines to predict, or you would not want to take a machine's prediction into that. And strategizing comes with a certain sense of vision, right? And a certain sense of risk-taking appetite, right? There's nothing called, in fact, if I was to ask you, of course, like there are mathematically, you can say, okay, a strategy has see, anything that requires, you need to understand what is good and bad firstly for AI to make a decision, right? Now, in a AI is nothing but maths at play, right? In any mathematical or operations research problem, when you look at, you need to have something called an objective function, and you need to see what is the error or the deviation from that objective function. That basically what we're trying to say in human language, right, is that you need to achieve X task, and the quality of your output is based on how far you are from the target, correct? Right? In strategy, the question is that many times strategy is a question of visionary thinking, which has risks at play, where you cannot clearly define an objective thinking. Right? So the lower end functions can be defined as objective thinking. Sure, you can have an objective that we want to grow 10 times the revenue. But strategy is not the goal. Strategy is how are you going to get.
Yeah, exactly. Is how to get there. Exactly. Yeah.
Is how to get there, which includes the plan also.
Which is
right?
Also. Yeah.
But the objective function is very mathematically put, is very complicated.
Yeah.
Right? Now in operations research, they teach you these kind of problems, right? But and whoever's run a company, has to take into factor so many things: the government policies, people, corruption. You can't factor that. You could factor it into a simulation and a math model, etc. But again, it requires a human to really put it together, right? So I don't see how high level strategizing can be left to a machine. And remember, it's what I talked about in the beginning. It's not just about capability. Even if someone in the audience says, yeah, I can strategize this and I can build a brilliant mathematical model to simulate everything. And if we can predict what's happening in the universe, why can't we predict where a company can go, right? Okay, fine. right? But the question is, are you willing to take the risk for AI to take that decision for a company, right? And here's where I think even if people agree that capability can exist, I think a lot of people will say no,
Mm.
right? So I think this is an example where I think in terms of ideation, it'll not work, right? In terms of even like, okay, let's even take there's automated trading in finance, right? Machines are already there, AI is already there taking those decisions, right? But do you think the people who are investing will have confidence only based on a machine, or they will require a person or a manager who is employing those machines but is answerable to them and is able to kind of admit when the machine is going wrong and make fixes, and someone who they can catch and blame? Probably this is a human tendency, we need
That's
someone to
it.
blame.
Yeah, this is what I'm thinking. The human connection is what we need at that point of time, and then plus is the trust
Yeah.
factor as well. Like, okay, I trust that person to make those decisions on my behalf. Say for invest. There's a mutual funds. I invest. Mutual fund manager, mutual fund guy. I say, okay, you invest on my behalf, but I'm investing him. Obviously, he's going through some AI tools maybe, but end of the day, I'm trusting that person.
Exactly, right? So that's again, and that person is planning a financial portfolio, etc.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So again, I think it's also fair to say that some of the lines between ideation and augmentation blur, but we need to remember ideation can use augmentation. So you should not get confused, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people can end up saying, well, if I end up using AI to help me out, then how is that different from augmentation? It's not, because it's a pyramid, right? Remember, augmentation relies on some amount of automation also,
Yes.
right? So a little
Yeah.
bit of this seeps in every. They're not distinct, mutually exclusive layers. This is also very important to understand, right? Automation seeps into augmentation. Augmentation seeps into ideation. But ideation is where it stops, and ideation is where you cannot kind of. That's where the decisions are finally made, and they require certain risk appetite, which is not possible for you to invest on machines.
So, Arjun, I want to talk about leadership here a little bit here, right? Because the things are changing fast. Every day there's something coming up. Every day there is a talk of AI and or LLMs and data science. So, what do you think as leaders, the CEO of a company or the department heads, what kind of culture they need to bring in the organizations today in this ever changing, ever evolving world?
Yeah, I think domain knowledge is obviously key. Making sure your employees earlier on, like if a developer was developing code for a company and did not understand the business that well, I think they could get away because all you needed were the core skills. But like I talked about, a person who understands the environment, multifaceted, right? This thing. So getting that training to just understanding how is your business different from other businesses, and getting that in the mindset of your employees is number one important. Number two is, I would say, having a data driven culture, right? Where you, because if you as an organization you want to use AI again in the sense that we talked about, you need data, right? And also I want to take a moment here to pause, because your question is very specific to businesses and CEOs, right? Now we need to talk about what brand of AI we're talking about, right? Because again, AI is very vast. So I want to be very clear. We're not talking about now ChatGPT anymore, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about AI as a data science to help your organization, right, in doing certain things. Sure, you could use LLMs for chatbots and things like that, but we're talking about you leveraging AI for business, right? Analytical strengths and capabilities,
Yeah.
and for that you need to be data driven, right? Which basically means that you need to have. Remember, we talked about the different stages of revolutions. We had the computer revolution, we had the internet revolution, then we had the data revolution, and then we had the AI revolution, right? So a lot of companies have skipped the data driven aspect, and they're trying to jump onto AI, right? And I had this problem where I was consulting with a company and they wanted to introduce AI, and we were not quite sure whether we should focus on proving AI capabilities in certain niche areas, or should we work on basically, because we found that the data in that organization, right, was not up to a standard where it could be consumed effectively. What I mean by that, if I can be technical, I don't know how technical I can be on this call, right? But everyone is aware of most of the audience probably is aware of databases,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so each application has its own database which lives in its own silo, right? Now, typically in software, at some point, what you want to do is see if AI has to make decisions, you need to have a view of all your data. Now, if data is sitting in different silos, how do you get view of all your data? Right? So I can go technically deeper, but what I'm trying to say is that data driven basically means that as an organization, you have control and view of all your data as one. That means even if you have multiple applications, you have the ability to see your data as one.
As one.
This is where data lakes and data warehouses, but there are different techniques. Again,
Yeah.
I'll be probably going technically off topic if I go deeper. But yeah. So being data driven, this is what I mean by data driven. I just want to be very clear what I mean by data driven, right? I think these are things, and then I think then the third is leveraging AI. So the first 2 points didn't even include AI itself; it's just preparing yourself, right? The third is then leveraging AI. Now you have the right data, you have the ecosystem. How you can agentic AI basically, right? And agentic AI is how you can leverage different agents to work with this data, to work with people, right? To achieve those operational efficiencies. I think these would be some three key things. They could be more, but for the sake of time and complexity, I'll limit myself.
Yeah, no. It does make sense to me because I have a little bit of a tech background, but I hope it's making sense for leaders as well. Arjun, I want to talk about a little bit on roles as well, leadership role as a leader, because there's an anxiety in the world of AI taking I hear a lot of talks happening, not at my work, but outside world, saying, okay, what will happen? AI is coming over. There's a lot of anxiety. People are very anxious in their roles. So how will then leadership roles in tech, especially, or the organization evolve then? What should they do?
I think, this is related to the previous question and some of the certain things you said. I'll first say that I think what I find is a lack of clarity of a lot of leaders, how they plan to use AI. And this is a very important thing that they need. I think AI is also a hype. The hype is real, like we talked about, we covered that topic. But the question is that you should not act because of a hype. And I find people have engaged me in scenarios where just to sell and look good and make their companies look good. Nowadays, you'll notice everybody is AI enabled, right? They'll do something small and they'll talk about it. But I think one thing that I find missing with CEOs and senior leadership, because your question is regarding senior leadership, is that they are missing the clarity of what they expect from AI. I think first they need to understand what do you expect from AI for your business. Forget technical. What is your expectation of AI?
That's a great
You need to define that.
Yeah.
But and the problem is at the senior level, they don't have a very clear mandate of their expectation in AI, and they pass this on to the mid management. Now the mid management is like a headless chicken saying, "Oh, we need to get AI." They get all sorts of things, but there's no goal as such, right? You want to use AI, but how and to what purpose? And I have been so surprised because I have been involved in projects where the goal was specified by the business, right? We acted on that goal, right? And then later on, we were asked that, okay, but why are we doing this? What is the value of this goal, right? So it's and I'm not trying to put it back on the business. It made me think that I think as any company as well as any consultant who comes to your company, you have to first, rather than just assuming the goal and working with that goal, you have to cross-question the leadership. So this is both for leaders and middle management to cross-question your leaders and to be very clear that they understand what to expect from the AI. Otherwise, you're going to end up wasting a lot of money and time, right? So that's I think the previous question I asked her, how you can go about it in a certain fashion. But why are you using AI and what you expect from it is probably the most important question CEOs need to ask.
Yes. That's a great way to end our podcast. Actually, that's very thought-provoking. You actually asked a question to us, right, as leaders. So why behind it? So thank you, Arjun. Thanks for your time on this podcast. It was lovely talking to you. And then I know we went a little bit technical, but I think it made sense. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. I apologize if I
no, it's fine. I think it was brilliant. I think so. So guys, let us know your thoughts, please. If you have any question, please, for Arjun, please comment and let us know your thoughts, and we can do another podcast very soon as well on your questions. So okay, take care, stay safe, and I'll be back with the new guest on Curiosulus Chronicles very soon. Bye for now.